Hey, good morning, YouTube world. So today's rant, video, if you will, is about religion and mainly hypocristians, aka hypocrite Christians. So, just a little background and backstory on me. So, I was born and raised Roman Catholic. And growing up, I went through the process. My family went to church every Sunday. I went to catechism, first Holy Communion, confirmation when I was in like the eighth grade, the whole process. And, I believed in God. I got it. I was never extreme with it. Thankfully, my parents were never extreme with it. But religion and going to church was important. And probably around the age of 15, 16, my parents were cool. And it was like, hey, if you want to keep coming to Mass with us, you can. But if not, it's your choice. You're a young adult now. When it comes to religion, you can make your own choices. And I decided to not go to church anymore because I always kind of viewed going to church as something that I had to do, not necessarily something that I wanted to do. But 100% I am religious. I mean, I wear a miraculous medal to this day. This is actually my father's. And I talk to God every day. I pray, but I don't go to church every Sunday. I seldom go to church. I do it my way. I believe that you don't need to go to a building. You don't need to go to church to find God. You could find God anywhere. You could pray at any time and He hears you just the same. I do what works and what's comfortable for me. I definitely have my faith. I do believe in a heaven and a hell, and that when I die, I'm going to go one place or the other. Given my crazy past, I'll probably have to do some time in purgatory nonetheless, but I have my faith. I do consider myself a practicing Catholic, but I do it in the way that works for me and what's comfortable for me. Everyone should be able to worship the way they choose. So, my experience here in wanting to vent about hypocrite Christians, and I'm going to share a recent story that still deeply bothers me to this day because it's basically exposing fake people. So, the house I'm in right now is my mother's house. She passed away after a difficult battle with leukemia. I'm from New York, and when my mom passed away, I decided to keep her house here in Virginia. Now, my mother had some very close friends here, neighbors that are right on the street, across the street, couple houses down. These are people that my mom was very close with for years, and people that I knew as well, because for years when I would come to visit my mom, we would always have family dinner, eat together, play Scrabble, have dessert. So these are people that I have a lot of history with, and I've known for easily 10 years myself. These neighbors, though, these people I'm speaking of, are like heavy duty Christians. And I'm sure, as a lot of you know, there is a difference between being Catholic and being Christian. And I've noticed a lot of people that are Christian are a little extreme. Like, especially people that are like really devout Christians, they're very extreme with it. Like, going to church religiously, always talking about Jesus, preaching about Jesus, posting about Jesus on Facebook. They do a lot of talking. Okay, again, this is just my experiences. So, when I decided to keep this house and relocate to Virginia, these neighbors couldn't have been happier and more supportive. And it was all like, this is great. We're so excited that you're coming and you're keeping your mom's house and you're like extended family. And knucklehead me actually believed it and believed that I would not only have neighbors, but basically extended family and family friends. And I would have people checking in on me, lending a hand, because not only are these neighbors, but they were dear friends of my mother, and they're also devout Christians, right? Because let's face it, Jesus was all about love thy neighbor, right? So, fast forward to when I actually landed here, which was just before Thanksgiving. And of course, I got a couple of text messages like, hey, welcome home, welcome to your new home. But that was kind of it. And then a couple of days later, because I'd set up my pod delivery for after Thanksgiving, and I had a huge pod dropped off in my driveway. Can't miss it, the biggest pod you could get. Radio silence from my new neighbors, extended family, and devout Christians. To the point that on the day my pod was delivered, one of my neighbors, one of these Jesus Krispies, was in his yard blowing his leaves. Saw my pod, saw me starting to go into it, pulling stuff out. And I'm like, okay, if I could see him, I'm pretty sure he could see me. And I just assumed he was going to walk over at some point and be like, hey, bud, see your pod got delivered. Like, need a hand or anything? That didn't happen. He finished blowing his leaves and he went inside. For 2 weeks, now my pod was here for about 6 days. Not once did these neighbors, extended family, devout Christians, reach out to say, are you good? Do you need a hand? Could you use any help? Hey, we're running to the Food Lion. Need anything? Need us to grab you a case of water? Nothing. Radio silence. After about 2 weeks, one of these devout Christian neighbors starts hitting me up about a holiday Christian event at their church and was basically inviting me to go to it. So I just ignored the text message. I'm like, really? This is the first I'm hearing from you in 2 weeks? And the only thing you're bringing to the table is want me to go to your church for this Christian event? So I just ignored the text message. The next day, another text message from the same person. Hey, did you get my text from last night? So at this point, I did reply, and I said, yes, I did. And I figured anyone with half a brain would kind of connect the dots like, all right, he got the message, but clearly he's not interested in going. But she was persistent and then texted again. Oh, well, you really have to come to this event. It'll be great. It was like some Christian holiday concert because at this point it was around Christmas. And it got to the point where I basically was just like, no, like I'm super busy. Like I'm still unpacking. My plate is super full. Like thanks, but no thanks. But she was persistent and kept pushing how I have to come and how I'll love it and I won't regret it. And it got to the point after like the fifth or sixth text message about going to this Christian event that I was like, you know what? I got to nip this in the bud. And I finally fired back a text message basically saying, hey, it would have been nice if you were this persistent when my pod was sitting in the driveway. This persistent with checking in to make sure I'm good, seeing if I need a hand, if I could use any help. And keep in mind, folks, these are not like elderly neighbors. These are people that are maybe like mid-50s, the two husbands. I mean, these are not people that are in wheelchairs. These are people that are out in their yards doing work. These are people that easily could have helped me moving a couple of boxes, unpacking. And again, I didn't hear anything. But yet I think to myself, like, wasn't Jesus all about love thy neighbor, take care of thy neighbor, check in on thy neighbor? So once I kind of called this neighbor out through text message about the whole like, hey, I wish you would have been this persistent like a week ago, right? A week and a half ago when my pod was in the driveway and I could have used maybe a hand back then. Her response was basically like, oh, well, we just assumed you were fine. We knew you weren't bringing any heavy furniture, so we just assumed you were good. Really? That's your response? And it's like, yeah, okay, but again, never mind the moving part. Like, you all know that my mom just died. Like at this point, it's barely been 2 months. Obviously, being in her house, there is constant reminders of my mother everywhere. How about just the mental health check-in? Like, hey, Sean, now that you're in your mom's house, I'm sure it's heavy. Like, how are you? Again, never mind the helping me move boxes. Just a simple like, hey, are you good? Do you need to talk? You doing all right? There was none of that. And I remember thinking like, if Jesus lived on my street, I'm pretty sure he would have come over and knocked on the door and been like, hey, new neighbor, how you doing? Are you good? Do you need a hand? I'm running to the Food Lion. Do you need anything? Or more importantly, Sean, how are you doing? How are you adjusting? Jesus would have done that. But yet my neighbors who claim to be devout Christians and all about Jesus, again, radio silence. So I kind of had this little battle now starting with my neighbor through text. And then her whole thing was, oh, well, we know you're new here and don't really know anyone. So we wanted you to come to this event at our church because we figured it was a great way for you to meet people in the community, make new friends. I read that as, man, it sounds like you guys like trying to recruit me, right? Because there's plenty of other activities and things we could have done. Like, it would have been way more effective if you had reached out at one point and just said, hey, Sean, like, want to go grab a pizza or catch a movie or, go for a walk to the lake. Just there's like 100 other things that could have been offered or we could have done. But the only way you reach out and the only time you reach out is to get me to go to one of your Christian events. And then also too, let's face it, listen, I have tattoos. I listen to heavy metal music. I drink. These are all things that they know of and they're aware of. And they probably, secretly frown upon, like, oh, he listens to that devil music. So in their minds, maybe they're like, you know what, now that Sean's here, let's get him to our church. He needs to be saved. Like, who knows what's going on in their mind? But this is just kind of my gut feeling that might have something to do with it. And the funny thing is that, yes, I have tattoos. I love heavy metal music. I don't go to church every Sunday. I'm not constantly talking about Jesus. I'm not posting religious content on my Facebook page. But you know what? I'm probably a better Catholic than they are Christians. Because you know what? I actually care about people. I try to do good things on a daily basis. I try to be kind, compassionate, considerate. I try to help my neighbors. I have another neighbor down the road that had broken her arm, and my whole thing was like, hey, whatever you need help with, I'm here. Like, I'm the kind of guy, if I'm at the supermarket and I see some little old lady going for something on the top shelf, I'm right there to be like, hey, ma'am, let me get this for you. I'm the kind of person that will periodically go to church on my own, light a candle, put some cash in the collection box. Like, I have a big soft spot for animals and taking care of animals and, just being just nurturing, right? And just trying to be kind to other people, trying to be a good person. Because to me, that's what counts. That's what makes a good Christian, Catholic. I mean, this could apply to any religion. It's all about how you conduct yourself on a daily basis. Doesn't matter how you dress, how you look, what music you like. It's your actions, how you treat other people. And it's just funny because it's like these people, because they go to church religiously every Sunday, they just assume that they're all good. And because they're always blabbing about Jesus, again, they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. But these are the same people that are kind of self-righteous. They're quick to judge. Rather than checking in on thy neighbor, they just like to be by their blinds, looking out, keeping an eye on their neighbor, seeing what they're up to. But that's it. And to me, it's just BS. Like during my first 2 weeks here, because I was friends with these people on Facebook, and I was kind of like documenting my move in, putting up little reels, little posts, kind of where I was at with things. And it's funny because no sooner than I would post something, they would view it. And I would see viewed by this person, viewed by that person. And I found that interesting too, because I'm like, well, they got time to go on Facebook. And they got no problem keeping tabs on me on Facebook. But they can't take 5 seconds to send a text message and just say, hey, you good? You need help? You need a hand? And I kind of brought that up too. Because at one point they were like, oh, we've been busy with the holidays and this and that, so sorry, we didn't reach out. Well, BS. You had plenty of time to go on Facebook. Every video or post I've put up in the last 2 weeks, you viewed. So you're obviously not that busy because, again, you got time to go on Facebook. But you can't walk across your street and knock on the door and just say, hey, you good? We're running to CVS. You need anything? I see your pod was delivered. Do you need a hand? You need any help? That didn't happen. But again, these are devout Christians. You got to admit here, folks, it seems a little wonky, right? Again, if Jesus lived on my block, do you really think he would let 2 weeks go by? Especially if he knew like this guy just lost his mother? You really think he would let 2 weeks go by without so much as just checking in just to see like, hey, how you doing? So in a nutshell, folks, this is my problem with religion. People that are extreme with religion, because it's a lot of this. It's a lot of talking, but they don't back it up with their actions. They're literally hypocrites. They go to a building every Sunday and listen to love thy neighbor, support thy neighbor, forgive thy neighbor, blah, 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 blah. But then they come home and don't even check in on their neighbor. Their new neighbor that just moved in, who's supposed to be extended family, who just lost his mother, which they all know because they were her dearest friend. They were at the wake, they were at the funeral. And it's like, man, how quickly people forget, or how quickly they just get self-absorbed with their own life, right? And it's like they forget. But again, it's like, is that being a good Christian? So, and that's why I said before, like, I feel like I'm a better Catholic in my own unique way of doing things because, on a side note, shortly after I was here, someone new moved in across the street and I saw them outside. I walked over, introduced myself, said, "Hey, listen, I'm new to the area as well, but if you need help with anything, let me know. My name is Sean." Gave him my cell phone number. I tried to do the right thing. Again, I try to do the right thing. But at the same time, I'm not claiming to be this super religious person, always talking about Jesus. I just try to be a good person, period. So, again, that's my problem. People that are self-proclaimed devout Christians, but they don't live it. They don't act it. They don't say hi to their neighbor. They don't check in on their neighbor. It's like I'm almost like at a loss for words. So anyway, curious if anyone else out there has run into this, has experienced this. Certainly feel free to leave comments. If you guys like the stuff I've been talking about, don't hesitate to hit the subscribe button. I'm kind of new to all this, so I'd be curious to see where this could go. But listen, folks, to wrap this up, just do you. Be a good person. Don't care about what other people think or say, whatever else. And especially anyone out there that does have faith and is religious, the only thing that matters at the end of the day is what God sees. It doesn't matter what your neighbors see or what they do or don't do, what they think of you. Again, I'm probably judged just based on the way I look, right? But I don't really care what the neighbors think. All that matters is what the man upstairs thinks. That's all that counts. So anyway, hope you guys got something from this. Hope you all have a great week. Peace, love, and happiness. Later.